Welcome to the mid. 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 You're listening to the mid. So we're back. Happy New Year, Wen.
Happy New Year, Trees.
Did you have a good holiday?
I did. Did you?
Yeah, it was all right. All right.
Yeah.
Probably something we could talk about at another time in another podcast about family situations gone wrong. But,
Good
it's
topic.
over. Everyone's intact. It's good. So I'm really excited to be back. We had a couple weeks off.
Mm-hmm.
I miss doing this.
Me too. Big time.
Yeah, big time. And as promised, we have our first guest, our
We
first live
do.
guest.
Yes. And this guest is extra special
Tell us why, Wendy.
because she is my cousin, and not only that, one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. And she has come on to talk to us a little bit about going alcohol free. Everybody, please welcome Anya Ledbetter.
Yay!
Welcome, Anya. This is
Hi,
very
everyone.
fitting. It's dry January for a lot of people who partake in that. So we've talked about having you on because we thought it's a great topic. And I know a lot of people are, talk about either sober curiosity or abstinence. And certainly you are our top choice of people to talk to. So we're wondering if you could maybe just start and tell us a little bit about your decision to be alcohol free.
Yeah, for sure. It's actually it's kind of a neat week for me because actually on Thursday I'm 1,000 days
That's
alcohol
incredible.
free, which is pretty cool. I never thought that I would actually say that. Yeah, so it's been a while. We're coming up on 3 years. I always kind of had it in the back of my head in terms of like, I would drink and then I would feel guilty about it the next day. I would drink, I would, think about, things that I, did that were stupid or, I regretted. And so it was always kind of in the back of my head that, I didn't really want to, or I had some kind of desire to stop, to slow down. I never really had like a significant problem, I would say. I mean, who knows what a problem is really, but it was in terms of just feeling that it was too much for me, but not necessarily knowing how to stop. Like everybody else in COVID, I increased alcohol consumption. So my husband and I started drinking more because there was really nothing else to do. And we kind of got into that whole like craft beer scene, right? Where we were trying new things, and that kind of became the highlight of COVID for us. And so, after COVID, it was, a realization again that, I didn't really want to do this. But it really started with my husband because he actually decided on his own that, his history, his family history, a number of people in his life with addiction problems related to alcohol. He decided that it was time for him to stop, and he really wanted to do that. And so he spoke to me about it and said, this is what I want to do. And then I said, well, if you're doing it, I'm going to do it too. So at that point, I read Annie Grace's book, The Naked Mind. It really resonated with me. I felt very like seen when I was reading it. A lot of her experiences were very similar to mine. And through her book and really just reflecting and also having the support of my husband, Steve, it was, something that I just came to realize I just didn't want to do anymore. And so we stopped, and it's been almost 1,000
for him
days.
as well. Like there was no, I don't want to say fall off the wagon type of thing.
But I was going to say that
there
too.
were no breaks or
false starts even, right?
Yeah.
Because I know that there's a number of people in my life who've tried to stop drinking for periods of time, and then it's easy to make an excuse. Oh yeah, that was for then, and now I'm back, but I'm doing it mindfully, or I'm doing it in a different way, or my relationship's changed. But for you, it was just one try.
Yeah, I was on track because I think I changed how I thought about it, right? And I really looked at, why I was doing it. I thought about, the messages that society sends to us, and sort of looked at like how kind of messed up it is in terms of how normalized drinking is. And I sort of just changed how I thought about it. That was a big thing for me, I think, in changing my desire to drink. And honestly, once I stopped and I felt more present and in the moment, I had more energy. Like there were things that I noticed had improved. I just didn't want to go back. The other thing is, I feel a connection, or not a connection, but a responsibility to Steve,
Mhm.
right? It's he's in it, I'm in it, we're in it together. So we've got that, that joint support, right, to keep going. And it's easier as well because it's totally out of my life. I'm not with a
Yeah,
partner who is still drinking, right? I think that would be much harder. So we did it together, and then, that's just how it is. We
that's
just keep
amazing.
going.
Okay, so I have a question. Like when you first stopped, what was the most difficult part? Like, did you have any, I don't want to say withdrawal because you didn't have like a severe problem or anything, but do you know what I mean? Like, did you have
Yeah, yeah.
any, like, oh
Yeah.
my God, I need a glass of wine, or you know what I mean? Like, did you have any of that?
Or even FOMO, I thought about, right? Because that
Yeah.
would tap into
Hmm.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it comes in spurts, right? Like it wasn't necessarily at the beginning, because at the beginning I was like super motivated, but then around, holidays, right? Or like your usual drinking events, girls' weekends, like those kind of things where I'm like, oh, I wish, I would like to have wine, right? I miss wine. That's, non-alcoholic wine does not taste the same. So it's definitely something that comes up now and then, right? And I think also, moving jobs. I went to, or I came from a job where we never really went out to drink. It was really kind of, very, very professional, to more of a laid back culture, and people meet up for drinks and that sort of thing. And, I will feel a little bit like, not one of the gang, I
Okay.
guess. A little different. So there's times like that where I think, maybe it wouldn't be so bad.
Do you get any pushback from family or friends? No?
No, not really. No. I think, from family, I think they were surprised for sure. Because it's just part of
Yeah, exactly.
our
Yeah, yeah.
culture, right? It's especially, I don't want to say
But
especially
yeah.
being Irish, but being Irish, it's
You guys grew up with a lot of alcohol. I mean, you grew up
everybody
together,
drinks.
obviously, and I was on the outskirts of
Yeah.
that. But I mean, I don't remember walking into a room where your families were gathered without alcohol on the table.
Oh yeah. Especially
Yeah.
my house.
Yeah. It's just part of it. Well, it's funny because I would say in my house less so. Like it
Mhm.
wasn't all the time when we were growing up, for sure. More so when my parents like probably got a little bit more money and were able to, spend it on
Yeah.
disposable things, right? Like alcohol. But it was definitely just part of the family, right? Every time family gathered, every time there was an event or, some sort of social gathering,
Yeah.
there was alcohol. And so I think deciding not to drink was very surprising to my family. And I think, I don't think anybody thought I would necessarily
Mm.
stick it out. So, yeah, so a little bit of pushback
Back
there.
to girls' weekend
Not
then. So,
pushback,
because
but
this all kind of fits together. So, girls'
Mhm.
weekend, and just for people who obviously know what a girls' weekend is, but not what it is to us, we get together once a year, so occasionally twice a year, with probably anywhere from 5 to 6, 7 people. And there's definitely alcohol there all the time. And when you first, announced that you were not drinking, I think there's definitely conversation around that, right? Like, what are you comfortable with? Everyone kind of gets concerned
Mhm.
as your friends, like, we don't want to make you uncomfortable. We also don't want to not drink. There's, multiple things going on at that time. So for year
Yeah.
one, if you can you tell me a bit about like what year one was for you compared to this year, where it's a bit more normalized for all of us?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think, year one, it was kind of odd to go, right, without, usually a couple bottles of wine, some drinks, some beers, that sort of thing. It was obviously different in terms of like packing up and going. I think, it felt a little bit weird. I was worried that I would be a
Yeah,
party
for sure
pooper,
you
I
would worry
guess.
that.
Like, kind of dull. Like, would I be, entertaining, or would anybody talk to me, I guess, is the
Ice her
question.
out.
But, well, because, like, I did. No, but like I think a lot of the time that I did drink, it was to kind of get over awkwardness, right? Like I did it when I was a little nervous. I would drink a little bit to like loosen up and be able to talk more and lose the filter. So it was kind of weird. Not that I felt odd around you guys, right? Because I've known you for so long, but it was just
Mhm.
an entirely new experience. So I think, that was weird going in. I think it was surprising for me that it was as easy as it was. Like I worked up a lot of emotion beforehand, but then actually when we were there, it was fine. And I find, that I mean, obviously nobody judges me
No,
and
no.
my, decisions, and everybody was pretty, you know, like interested in why. We had a lot of conversations about why. And there's other
Yeah.
things, right? Like gummies and stuff. So it's not like a
Yeah, you
total
guys didn't
ban
even
on
need to
on
speak.
substances. It's just alcohol. So no.
That's a really honest point that you bring up, though. Like, I like that it's very honest to say that you would have a couple of drinks to loosen up. And I think that's all of our experience. Like, I just think people don't necessarily cop to that. But I know if I'm going into a social
Mhm.
situation with people that I'm not necessarily uber comfortable with yet, that's a go-to is to have a drink beforehand. And I say, okay, I'm going in, this will loosen me
Really?
up. Yeah,
Totally.
for sure.
I'm
Yeah.
opposite. I
I don't
think
go out
I'm
Mhm.
enough
kind of
for it to be
opposite.
a thing,
No,
but
no, but
yeah.
like if we go I don't know, like I used to go to Chad's Christmas parties at work, and everybody be drinking and the whole thing, and I'd be like barely sipping because I feel like I'm this is going to sound bad, but see, my drunk Wendy thinks she's really fun. I don't think she is, but drunk Wendy does. And so when I have drinks and stuff, I mean, my laugh too, right? So I get very paranoid that I'm going to be too free. So it doesn't loosen me up. It stresses me out if I'm in.
Mhm.
It's like I don't want you to drink before events. I'm not saying, but that would I can see your perception of that, but I don't think that that's true for other people about you, like that you would get wild or be like a hyena.
No, but I get loud, right? I do. I laugh loud and you know.
We're all loud. So then going back to Girls Weekend,
Mhm.
year 3 or year 3. I
Mhm.
thought of this as year 3, but I guess you're just coming to year 3, but it's
This will be
the
year
third
3
girls. This
this
was
year.
the third girls weekend, wasn't it? Yeah, it was.
It's
So what was
yeah.
that like for you? So you always have a good stock of non-alcoholic choices too, right? Like you always come fully loaded with
Yeah.
non-alcoholic beers, coolers, whatever.
Mhm.
So do you find it difficult at all anymore?
No, I don't at all. And I find, one of the things that's actually been pretty cool is I've noticed our group, Girls Weekend group, it's become less
Yeah.
about alcohol, I think. And I've noticed, it's people are drinking more of the non-alcoholic things, or it's drinks at night, maybe not all day, by the water like we used to. So I
I
think
think you've
we've also
impacted that,
changed.
Anya. I think that that's part of your impact too, though.
Yeah.
I
I
do,
think
because I
so,
think
yeah.
it makes you look at your
Yeah.
own
I don't
and this
know.
is part of the other part of the question I asked when we were talking about friends' reactions. I think, I've gone for periods
Yeah.
of time without drinking. I've taken 6 months off here. I've taken, I've done the whole sober curious kind of journey throughout this. And I am still very sober curious because I don't always think any relationship with alcohol is completely healthy. Like I think, like you, I've listened to the Annie Grace books and they
Mhm.
resonated with me too from that time when I was drinking probably to avoid stress. And I am trying to be mindful not to drink like that. But I do know when I did stop drinking, my friends' reactions were all very interesting. And it usually reflect their own defensiveness around their habits, right? Because if you're looking at yours,
For sure.
somehow people believe that that mirrors their experience. They need to also look at their own experience. And I think that's been true for our friend group, but in a positive way, because we all are curious and we all do
Yeah.
want the most out of our living experiences. So to hear that you're kind of thriving alcohol free, I think that's impacted us.
Yeah.
I think it's funny too, because I think our group is really accepting. I mean, that whole defensiveness piece, I've gotten that from a lot of people, like, why don't you have a drink? Oh, I don't drink. Well, I don't drink that much. It's instantly about their relationship with alcohol. And that's something I always find really funny, because it's like, I don't care, like, drink. I have nothing against people that drink. It doesn't impact me in any way, but people have a need to tell you about, what they're doing, or they don't drink that much, or they're really cutting back. And I think you're right. It's justifying their own relationship with alcohol.
Are any friendships changed, would you
when
say, of
when I
yours?
kind
Like,
of,
has any been deeply impacted by your choice?
yeah, I would say so. I think, there's been some friendships where, it was really built around going out and having drinks together, that when you take that out, they're not as interested in hanging out, which, is what it is. So, I think that's it's definitely impacted, in some way. And I think sometimes it makes people uncomfortable, right? They don't necessarily want to drink when you're not. That's
Well, because it
another
again,
thing that
it's all
found.
about them, right? It's how it makes them feel, because you're not drinking,
Yeah.
they don't want to feel bad.
Mm-hmm. It's like a fear of judgment, but you
Yeah.
wouldn't only have that fear of judgment if you were
Yeah,
questioning your own relationship with it,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. And it's not like I'm
Not at all.
preachy about it either,
No.
right? Like, I don't.
No.
So yeah, it's just it comes down to people's own relationship and thoughts and fears, right? So
Yeah. So you are the person that I know that I've ever known who have gone this long without a drop of alcohol. And it's really quite impressive. It is. It's and I have a kind of sub question to this, but what advice, if somebody was going to go alcohol free, what would your advice to them be? Or if you even have any?
Oh, that's good. God, no one wants my
It's
advice.
not true. Simply not true, Anya.
I don't know. I think, I guess the biggest piece of advice I have is go into it for the right reasons, right? Like, I think that kind of what it boils down to for me. It was all those times that I had thought about it, all those times that I was like, oh, I really got to stop. I didn't really want to. I didn't really commit to it, I guess. So really being mindful about why you're doing it, and thinking about it like holistically, in terms of, like, what your life's going to look like without it, and what are you going to do, in terms of, addressing it, if you do have cravings, or if you do want to. So yeah, I guess, commit, and don't judge yourself, and
That's very good advice.
it's so much better on the other side. It is. It's honestly, like, I think it's one of the best things I've ever done for myself. I kind of, when I decided to stop, I was like, I'm going to lose all this weight. It's going to be great. I'm going to get, because of all the calories from alcohol. And I didn't. It was very marginal in terms of the impact, physically, but mentally, having clarity and feeling really present, and really connected, is huge. And that's been probably the best outcome that I've experienced.
So that being said, going back to, well, a little bit of this, but back to Girls Weekend, when you mentioned gummies. So do you feel like, I know, but our listeners,
Daniel doesn't know.
Yeah. Do you feel like having a few funny gummies, like in a social situation, like, is that something that you think of as sort of a crutch? Or is that just something you do just to have fun randomly once a year, or kind of thing?
Yeah, I would say the latter. It's just, fun randomly once a year. Definitely not a crutch, because it's
Girls'
really
Weekend.
only Girls' Weekend.
Is it just to put up with us, Anya? Be
Yeah.
honest. Is it because we're intolerable sober? Is
Stop
that
giving
it?
a gummy, somebody.
No.
By day 2, Anya is looking.
Well, no, honestly,
It's just fun.
it's
Yeah.
something fun to do that's different. Yeah. Yeah. I don't feel like it's a crutch. I don't have the same connection, right? Like with alcohol that I had with alcohol in terms of like, I can't wait to get home
Right.
to have a
Don't
glass
get
of
home to have
wine,
a
right?
pack
It's
of
not
gummies. No.
like that. So,
No, you can hardly
no.
call something annual a crutch. Yeah.
Yeah. No, 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 for sure. But I
Yeah.
do find that funny. I find it funny that I know quite a few people who will not allow any of their children or family members know that they'll indulge in like a gummy or smoke a joint or something like that now that it's, even though it's legal, right? But they have
Mhm.
no problem drinking alcohol in front of their children, right? And I've
Yeah.
always found that really fascinating. Like I don't do that. I mean,
It's
my kids know I'll eat gummies, I'll smoke a joint, you know, kind of thing. Not here, but like once a year on girls' weekend or whatever, like a special occasion, I'll do that, no problem. And the kids know I've done it with a couple of them. But I mean, they're legal age. But I
Mhm.
find that really interesting that
Don't you think that's a stigma thing from our generation, though? Because we're still of the generation that grew up hiding it. So, like, it's still to
yeah,
this day when I smell weed walking down the street, I go, "Oh God!" Like someone's smoking a joint. Like that's
I do it too.
my initial. So I
Yeah,
think that comes
Yeah.
from the
yeah,
stigma that
Yeah.
we had growing up, where it's still bad to a certain extent because it was illegal for the majority of our lives, right? It was
yeah.
still something to get away with. And now that it's just such a huge change. I
Mhm.
think, the problem with alcohol societally is that it's just so accepted. It's more accepted to
It's
have
so
alcohol than it
normal.
is to not have alcohol. And I
Yeah.
wonder, so something like sober
Mhm.
January and all of this, or dry January, and really for the last probably 10 years, there's been talk about people actively choosing not to drink. It's a smaller segment of society, but I do think it's growing. Um, there's that term sober curious that I've already used and that people talk about drinking more mindfully, maybe limiting their consumption. And when they do choose to drink, being mindful of why, and, certainly not for stress and not for a negative reason, but to partake in something socially and, things of that nature and reflecting on the role alcohol has in your life. So I've always heard two schools of thought about things like sober January, and I'm interested in yours because you've been someone that has been alcohol free for now 1,000 days this week. What's your view on those types of fads, like sober January? Like you get a medal for not drinking for 31 days.
I actually think they're good because I think it gives people an opportunity to try it, right? And see. I think again, you have to go into it with the right mindset, right? Like I think, I've done them before. Like when I was drinking, I would do a, sober January and I'd make it maybe 3 weeks. And it always felt like deprivation, right? Um, so I don't know. I think you get a taste of it. I think it's good in the long run because it was part of the reason I was thinking like I can do this longer term. But yeah, no, I think it's a good
And that certainly
opportunity for people
highlights, I guess, people's decisions not to drink or to limit their alcohol.
for sure, and it makes you think about
Yeah.
it, right?
So you're a mother of two
Yeah,
teenager-ish, almost-ish boys, right? What are their ages now?
15 and 11.
Jesus.
So
I
what's your
know.
conversation with them then about alcohol?
Yeah, that's interesting. So I try really hard to be more neutral. So my husband's a bit more militant in terms of, being very anti-alcohol and, pointing out all the health studies and, different
Which
things that
kids
pop
love,
up.
by the way, if I can
Totally,
interject.
totally.
Children love stats. They love studies.
Totally.
The more
Yeah.
information that you can throw at them,
Oh
the
yeah.
more they listen, I find.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But I'm a bit more pragmatic. Like I'm not, I know they're going to try it. It's so normalized within our society. It's everywhere. It's, part of everything that we do. I know they're going to try it. I just want them to be smart about it. And I want them to, think about their consumption and then also know that, if they drink too much, I'm always going to
Mm-hmm.
be able to pick them up because I don't drink. So, I'm
Bonus.
a good
Yeah.
ride. But yeah, no, I want them to be aware, but not fearful,
Mm-hmm.
right? And go into it with, a clear head.
Yeah, like a
That's
healthy
really good.
dose of skepticism, right? Going in, which is really good.
Yeah,
Like you guys have modeled because they've seen you drink and they've seen you not drink, right? Like they've seen both
Both
sides of that.
sides.
And they're probably, yeah, they're able to manage for themselves decisions based also on the experience they've had watching you too, right? And they've probably seen you
for
have more
sure.
energy and probably seen you have more clarity, which is a good sales
Yeah.
pitch. That's better than studies, actually.
Yeah, no, for sure. And we've always talked to them about it. We've never hidden anything. We told them we decided not to drink anymore. This is why. And so they've been along for the ride and they know why. And I think it is a good model for them. And, if they decide to drink, then, so be it. That's up to them. But, hopefully they have that, awareness of, that it's not necessary and it doesn't have to be a part of life. And we don't have it as a part of our celebrations and stuff. So they're not going to grow up with it.
Yeah, like you need this on your birthday or yeah,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Yeah.
that's a very cool way to grow up.
Yeah.
Um, I had a question too, just about, I just heard on the CBC the other day that they're talking about the Surgeon General, I think was it US, UK? I don't know. Don't ever quote
Yeah,
me
the
on this.
US.
Yeah, we're discussing labeling on alcohol bottles, right? We've long lived with labeling on cigarette packages. And what do you think the impact would be? Like they're also it I think the interesting thing about this time, right, is that they're saying you can't deny facts. I think it was within the last 2 years that
Yeah.
it's been more forward in in media that it's not about whether or not alcohol may cause cancer. It's that it's a carcinogen. It will cause cancer at some level for everyone, depending on your physiology, depending on your body
Mhm.
makeup. And it's responsible for a lot of different types of cancer. So now the fact is we can't have blinders on about that, and warning labels seems like the next natural thing because that's what we do is we show decrepit pictures of
Pictures.
people on life support or whatnot. Do you think that there'll be an impact? Like, do you think that you're seeing, I guess I have a two-part question then. Are you seeing a downshift in people drinking? And do you think that that type of messaging or labeling will have an impact?
Okay. Yes. So I think the downshift, absolutely. I think I've noticed it more, even just going to the grocery store and seeing all the different, varieties of non-alcoholic beers and wines that you can get. So much more than it ever was. And, that to me shows that there is a demand
Mm-hmm.
for it. Since we've stopped drinking, there's been many people that have told me they have stopped as well. So I don't know if we've impacted people or we just kind of end up around the people that do the same thing. Who knows? But in my life, I've noticed quite a lot of people deciding to stop drinking as well. So yeah, I think there's definitely a downshift. I think in terms of warning labels, it's it's tricky because I think, sometimes it becomes, just part of the package. People don't notice anymore. And I think about that with like cigarette packaging. Like, it's jarring at first, but when you see it a bunch of times, I don't know the impact that it has. But I think it's something. And to your point about, there's definite connections to cancer, and we know this. I don't know that a lot of people know this, right? So you still hear, the messaging that, having a glass of wine a day is good for your
Yeah.
heart. And then, the Surgeon General's coming out and saying, well, there's no known quantity that's, safe really.
And it
And,
literally leads to heart
that
disease. Yeah.
exactly. So I think we as a society or the government or whoever needs to do something to make people more aware, because there really isn't enough awareness about the real negative health impacts that alcohol causes.
It's sort of an oxymoron though, because you've got the body of government that is on one hand legalizing the sale of alcohol from 7 a.m. in your corner store in Ontario. I know it's very different in Quebec. It has been for a long time. But they're then on the flip side supposed to give us the warning. So they're benefiting from our mass consumption of alcohol. And then they're also, responsibly giving us the Surgeon General warning. So it's an interesting dilemma that both are coming from the same source, and what is their actual intention with slowing down people's alcoholism? Like, are they weighing the lean on the healthcare system for people that are really affected by alcohol to the point of hospitalizations and needing extra healthcare, or are they just telling you enough so that you keep drinking, but with a bit more awareness?
Well, it is crazy. It is crazy because you don't hear, I mean, growing up, the only thing I ever heard that like a health issue that was related with alcohol was cirrhosis. That's it. That's the only thing, like, you'll get
picture
cirrhosis.
like people, and you picture people brown bagging it that get cirrhosis, right? You don't picture people that have the glass of wine every day.
Yeah.
But your experience, Wendy, familial wise with severe alcoholism.
Look at my brother, right? I mean, he had cirrhosis. He has cirrhosis, but he also has wet brain, Wernicke's Korsakoff encephalopathy. That's such a freaking word.
I'll explain.
And it's the depletion of the B1 vitamin, I think it is, where his brain actually atrophies, all 100% caused by alcohol. And you don't hear about
dementia.
that.
It's basically looks like dementia for people who don't know.
Yes,
right?
It absolutely does look
early
like that.
onset of dementia.
Yeah. Dementia with Alzheimer's mixed in. There's the memory's gone, like the whole thing. Like there's so many different parts, or not different parts, but different health issues related to alcohol that nobody hears about. And I personally think that the labels are a good first step, because I look at, I mean, yes, I still vape, but with smoking cigarettes, a lot less people smoke them now. And I think with time and like it's a first step, it's a baby step, right? So I do think it's a step in the right direction. And there just needs to be a lot more awareness, like the cigarette ads, like smoking kills you and, all that stuff. And they stopped the advertising of all that, right? I don't think that they have with alcohol, have they? They still advertise alcohol, right?
No, I don't.
Yeah,
they do.
Yeah, they don't do that with cigarettes anymore. You're not allowed to anymore, right?
No, that stopped you're right. That stopped a long time ago. So it's
like it's like a slow progression, but I do think it has helped, because you see a lot less smokers now. Like when I go out and I see a smoker, I'm like, oh my God, somebody's smoking. Like you don't see it so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think with your brother's situation, that's so great. Like, it's not something you would even think about. Like someone our age, basically, right? 2 years
he's 53.
older than you and I, suffering from alcohol, like in that, the impact is just huge, right? When you know someone who has been affected that devastatingly by alcohol, I didn't even know that it was possible to have early onset dementia due to alcoholism until it happened.
Same. Me too.
And your brother needing constant support, needs to be in a care setting. It's talk about sobering. Literally, it's really it gives you pause for thought. And certainly we're talking about a lot of alcohol, and that wouldn't happen to someone who was a moderate drinker likely, but it's still like the fact that it can take over someone's life like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's scary. It really is. I mean, I say that, but I do drink alcohol, but I drink it like, not like him.
No, you still know who we are.
You know what I mean? Like I do drink it. I'll have a glass of wine once in a blue moon type thing. It's not, I actually prefer Corona Sunbrew, non-alcohol. That's mostly what I'll have when I'm, wanting like a beer or something like that. That's what we'll do. First of all, calories.
Well, and just to prove how popular this is becoming. So my brother at Christmas, he always brings beer, and I always tell him to, because we don't really have that much beer. Like we don't have a ton of alcohol in the house. We do drink socially, and there is some alcohol in this house, but not what he would want to drink. So he always brings beer. And this year he brought half Corona, half Sunbrew. And like it just kind of blew my mind that he was even thinking about, because we had one beer and he had one Sunbrew. And I was like, oh, okay. So if this dude, like that's always just, not that he drinks heavily, but he'll have his 2, 3 beers at Christmas. He's even making a bit more of a mindful decision. And I think that's probably the biggest shift. It's not necessarily abstinence. It's a new conversation around alcohol.
Yeah.
It's a bit more mindfulness and thoughtfulness that goes along, and reflection, right? Reflection and what is this doing for my life? Is it contributing? I know very few people who could probably say, yes, alcohol is contributing to my life
in a positive way.
Yeah. It's like, really?
Yeah.
And coming back, I was thinking about Anya, what you said about Annie Grace. I read that book as well. And I think she stopped drinking in her 30s, 40s, I don't know, somewhere, but she would have been perimenopausal, right?
Yeah.
And women's health during menopause it changes so drastically, and the impact of alcohol on women in menopause is vastly different to before, right? To what your experience with alcohol is. And she speaks in her book about getting up in the middle of the night every time she drank, being up at like 3 a.m., going through, our brains are busy enough as women. We think probably far too much as it is. And we are, generally speaking, much harder on ourselves than our male counterparts. So that really resonated with me, that the disrupted sleep, the feelings of guilt, I don't want that in my life.
Yeah.
And I think, women during
absolutely.
menopause don't understand necessarily how they metabolize alcohol differently and how it affects them much more profoundly. And not even at menopause, but leading up to perimenopause, all of it. Your body just does not enjoy alcohol. Like it really is rejecting it at every step.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I found, one of the things that I found was my anxiety improved after, because my anxiety would go up when I was, having a glass of wine. So I'm having wine to kind of feel better and less anxious, but it was having the inverse effect. And, I found that worsening as I got older as well.
Well, and I think that's one of the old standards of drinking. It's been sold to us as a way to unload, right? A way to help kickstart relaxation, when it absolutely does the opposite.
See, that's the one thing that I just can't come to terms with. Because for me personally, no, seriously. Like I've read that. I read the book as well. And that doesn't happen for me. Maybe it's because I'm such a I literally drink once in a blue moon. I don't know why. But if I had a stressful day and I came home or just went to the fridge because I work from home and grabbed a glass of wine,
left the office,
and just sat down outside and had my glass of wine, I actually do feel better.
Well, I think there is something to, like, I'm not going to say that the first couple of sips of alcohol I've always loved. And that's what's kept me drinking, is those first sips of alcohol do that. But I think it's more mental, right? It's this idea that I'm doing something that I know or think I know will help me relax. And I'm not saying I don't like that. Otherwise, I would have completely stopped drinking by now. I'm saying that I think that so you're in a good spot because you can have that one glass of wine and walk away.
Stop.
A lot of people can't, right? So a
Okay.
lot of people have the second glass and the third glass and the fourth glass.
Okay.
And I don't know when it happens for people, but the anxiety that then creates
Okay, that makes sense.
It outweighs that first glass of relaxation, right?
Yeah, no, I can literally have half a glass and be good.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're in the minority of people, I think.
Okay.
No, I do. I don't think that that's most people's experience.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And I think, like I would say, I used to work a really, really stressful job. So I'd come home, I'd have a glass of wine to relax. I'd go back to work the next day. I'm anxious again because things are stressful and crazy. I'd have another glass of wine at night, maybe two. And then it would be, sort of every day. And then it would get like my anxiety would be worse because my job's stressful, but alcohol's not helping either. And it was just sort of this cycle that I was on. And I do find that I'm better able to cope with stress without alcohol, and whether that's sort of in my head or if it's, physiological, I don't know, but it's definitely improved since I haven't
Makes sense,
had
because if you're
alcohol.
doing it every day, you're building it up, right? Like it's like taking
Yeah.
medication, right? The more you take it, the more it's in your system, sort of thing, right? So it would be kind of the
Mhm.
same thing, that would, I think, create that anxious feeling or make your anxiety worse, right? I think i think what Teresa was saying was probably spot on in my situation, whereas like I don't have that every day. I never have. And so I can have like a half a glass of wine and I feel great and then I'm done, right? But if
Yeah.
you're having one every day, I guess if somebody's having one every day as a stress reliever after work or something, then yeah, it builds up in your system. And I think that, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I would assume that that would have an impact on your
You play one on
anxiety,
this
you know?
podcast. But I think it's also, it's if you're doing that every day with under the guise of relaxation, the things that you're not doing that could lead to relaxation are also on the table there, right? Like if
Mm,
you choose not to
Yeah.
drink, but instead you're going for a walk or you're exercising or you're
Yep.
even just chilling and connecting with your family, whatever it is, chances are it's going to lead to relaxation faster than the glass of wine or two glasses of wine.
yeah.
So you're building a
Yeah, for
healthier
sure.
habit thinking that wine is going to shut your brain off. And I think that's the women,
Hmm.
and this leads into that whole, when I was raising the kids, like not that I'm not still to some degree, but when they were really young, there was mummy wine culture was huge. Everything, like I'm being on Facebook, everything
Yeah.
you'd see, like the little, cartoons and
Hmm.
whatnot, it was like, oh, mummy, it's wine o'clock. Mummy needs a break. You deserve this. It's like a
Yep.
badge, right? Like that it's a reward at the end of your day, or it's what you deserve, or
Yep.
you should let loose because you've been so controlled parenting. And
Mhm.
it's really a disservice to women in
Hmm.
general that this is what you deserve. This is great. Because there's so many
Yeah.
different things you can do to relax or to treat yourself that are not drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good point, because I have replaced alcohol with the walks and with powerlifting and with massages and different things I do now that I didn't do before.
You give
So
massages to relax? That'll be really handy at Girls Week.
no,
If you
I
could
get
do that.
them.
Oh,
Damn
fine.
it.
Okay, we'll drink wine and
Damn it.
massage you, Anya. Fine.
We could get someone to come in again.
Oh God.
Oh, let's not.
Let's not.
So, okay. So that all being said, what is your, I have another question. It's totally not on topic really, but what is
Do
your
it.
favorite non-alcoholic drink or mocktail?
Oh, huh. That's a good one. I really like Sunbrew.
Yeah.
So I'm big on the Corona Sunbrew. It's really good. I love a mojito.
A
A
mojito.
non-alcoholic mojito is fabulous. Yeah, they're really good.
Is that the
And you know
non-alcoholic
what?
spirits, Anya? Like, do you buy non-alcoholic spirits like tequila and all of that? Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah, or sometimes I just, use club soda,
Okay.
right? And that's it. But yeah, no, those are probably my two big ones.
Okay.
But honestly, like I just drink a lot of sparkling water.
Okay.
That's kind of my go-to.
Have you tried the non-alcoholic gin?
Mhm.
I've been wanting to try that.
I haven't yet. No, I want to try it for sure. I
Okay.
haven't.
Expensive. So that's my question too. Are they making it expensive to not drink as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
Of course. Of
definitely.
So
course.
this
Yeah,
is like a
it's
boutique, craft.
yeah. No, for sure. And I mean, sometimes it's worth it though. Like
Yeah.
non-alcoholic Guinness is pretty good. At first, like the first couple weren't awesome. I think they've gotten better at it. So we buy that because we miss Guinness, and it tastes pretty similar. But the price isn't that different really from buying
For
Guinness.
beer, I kind of get it, especially Guinness. But maybe just because I like Guinness, like I could see that. Sometimes I think about like the tequilas and stuff. I guess it must take a lot to get it to taste like tequila without alcohol. I don't know. I just find it funny. You go to a bar now and you look at the mocktail menu or the non-alcoholic menu. The prices are almost the same, so they don't make it a
Yeah.
deterrent to not drink. It's like, oh, it's not. I could see if I was on the edge, I'd be like, well, screw it. Just have the
Just
tequila
have
then.
the tequila. Well, no, of course they're going to turn it, I mean, they're going to turn it into a market, a
Yeah,
niche market,
a
right? Like,
commercial market.
yeah,
For sure.
Totally.
for sure. They're going to make
Mhm.
money on it.
Yeah. I think you're seeing that already with all the different like mocktail
Yeah.
concoctions you can buy, like coolers, right? So,
Yeah.
and they're not cheap
No.
either. So
No.
they're doing the same thing.
So is Guinness better? Like, I remember a couple of years ago when we were still camping and I tasted your Guinness. Is it better than that now?
It's better than
Less
that,
sweet?
yeah, because it used to be sweeter. Yeah, it doesn't taste like that anymore.
Really?
So I don't know what they've done something different. Because yeah, I stopped drinking it for a while because it wasn't the same,
Right.
right? And I love Guinness, so that was disappointing having a Guinness that didn't taste like Guinness. But now it's pretty good now.
There's a lot of good non-alcoholic beer.
Yeah.
I did the Sporting Life 10K 2 years ago, and at the end, I mean, it's like 7:30 in the morning, and then I ended. I won't tell you what time I ended because I'm not super proud of my time, but I noticed at first. The first thing I saw was this big display for beer, and I was like, really? Well, this is disappointing. Then I realized it was Athletic Brew. It was the non-alcoholic, and people were drinking at the finish line. I was like, this is for cancer, and they're serving beer at 10 a.m. And then I got in line and had some of the non-alcoholic beer. And it was fantastic. Like, I loved the Athletic
Yeah.
Brew. So people are, tapping into every type of market for it as well,
Yeah.
right? Like, they're tapping into their athletes and
Yeah.
but there's a ton
Yeah,
of
for sure.
choice. And I am just
Yeah,
as happy to have a non-alcoholic beer. Like, beer for me is hot summer day. We finish the yard work. We've been drinking non-alcoholic beer many times rather than alcoholic beer.
Same.
And we're just as like, it's just the feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's come a long way since I was pregnant. Because I'd get the occasional like grocery store beer when I was pregnant, the non-alcoholic, and they were awful.
Mm.
And now it's pretty good. You can get a lot of different, different types and different styles of beers, which is cool.
Well, that's awesome.
I think it's changing. I do. I think that the whole culture is experiencing a shift, and it's been really fantastic to watch you and just thrive through this. And I think like I've said earlier, I do think that there's been an impact. I think when someone stops drinking, it's not about, being hard on yourself about your own habits, but I do think it's a good opportunity to pause and say, okay, well, what are my drinking habits? What's my relationship with alcohol? And if I don't want to abstain, which is fine too, is there something I can do to make it a little healthier or to be a bit more mindful about my consumption? So I would thank you for bringing that to our life with,
Absolutely.
we've had really good girls' weekend discussions. And I think, like you noted earlier, I do think that we have changed the way that we even celebrate getting together. It's not based around alcohol anymore at
No.
all. And it's not weird
Mhm.
if one of us chooses not to drink for a night or only has one or chooses to drink Sunbrew by the dock. And I
Yep.
think that that's, largely in part due to your experience.
Plus, who likes to get
Cool.
freaking drunk anymore? Like, seriously, like the spins.
Yeah.
Like, no,
Who
thank
wants
you.
to be
Yeah.
hungover?
Oh, no.
God.
And I just think our time is precious. Like, I know that sounds cheesy, but when I love girls' weekend. I never thought I'd be a girls'
Mhm.
weekend person, but our group of women is so easy to be around and so non-judgmental, and so just it just feels good, right? And who wants to miss that or not remember it?
Yeah.
Or be hungover for
Yeah.
like a
Exactly.
day. I
Yeah,
bet.
no.
Yeah. That's one thing I don't miss is the hangovers.
Or even feeling foggy. Like if I feel foggy
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
next day, I know I've had too much because you shouldn't have like that type of repercussion.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I would like to take this opportunity and thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us today. That was awesome and informative.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you were our first guest. It was
Yeah.
really easy for us because I would have been really super nervous if it was someone we didn't know, but it was so good to know that we could have an easy conversation.
Yeah.
Thanks, Anya.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, Wen, do your housekeeping.
Oh, yes. So please, if anybody has a question, you can send it to us for our email is themidconversations@gmail.com. Our Facebook page is the Mid Podcast, I'm sorry. And Instagram and YouTube is the mid_podcast. Please send us a message, and we will love to have your question on our show.
And if you like listening to us, or you just are annoyed by us but want to be more annoyed by us, please subscribe.
Please do. So next week, it's your turn.
Is it?
It is.
By golly.
Make it a
Can't
good one.
I will. Except it won't be. Oh, yes, it is next week. Okay. Yes.
All right. We'll see you next week on The Mid.
All right. Thanks for tuning in.
The Mid.